Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with speaker and expert on navigating change with grace, Donna Ferris. She lives in Westchester, Pennsylvania, and Duck, North Carolina, with her husband and dogs, and spends as much time as possible with her two Musketeers in Pittsburgh. In addition to continuing to work in corporate America, Donna teaches yoga, life coaches, leads retreats, and writes about overcoming adversity, grief, success, and sobriety as side hustles. She just published her first book, We've Got to Stop Meeting Like This, a Memoir of Missed Connections. We cover all of this and what success looks like in a post-COVID world. Enjoy this interview.
Donna, thanks for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Oh, I'm glad we were able to connect.
Yes, absolutely. So before we get into your life and the work you do, I want to know, how did you survive COVID? How did you make it through that 2-year period? And how did it change you now, both as a person and as a professional now that we've come out of it? Or we are coming out of it and things are opening up?
I think COVID, and I was lucky enough to not have an incredibly difficult time in terms of health or really anybody close to me that had health issues. So I had this unique position to kind of go into myself and really kind of take some time to heal from what had been a kind of a really difficult time for me before that. So I had a lot of tools, I think, coming into COVID to deal with what happened. And it gave me a lot of time to soul search. And it's actually, I got sober through COVID. So it was a very interesting time for me. And I have to say I'm better for the time, but I feel incredibly lucky to be able to say that.
I think that's what I'm noticing more and more, is that there's been an incredible amount of silver linings that have gone into this.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's true. I think it speaks to a lot of what I talk about with people is around that if you can find your way to see light through difficult times, you will likely be changed, and what you've experienced will make you more grateful and joyful with what you have. And I think when we have to be broken apart to have that experience, because when things are going great and everybody is on an upward trajectory, they don't get a chance to really think about what they're doing. They just are doing what's in front of them. But when everything kind of breaks, you kind of have to look at what your life is about and whether you're happy with it.
Absolutely. I contended during that whole time that anything that you were coming into it was only going to get magnified. So if you were typically, you were an optimistic, positive individual, that was going to be magnified. But if there was darkness, it was going to break out in a myriad of ways.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And we basically sent everybody home for a large, long time out. And if you didn't have the tools, if you didn't have the tools to deal with that, if listening to your thoughts ad nauseum was torturous for you, it was going to be really difficult. And so I was really fortunate that I had started to meditate. I was in yoga. I had done a lot of work on a book, but I wasn't done with it. So I just really dove into work and dove into my book, and that was. And I luckily had, was in the middle of a really great relationship. So all of those things kind of worked well, but I can totally see that there's different times of my life that would have been torture to be in the same house with the same person, having to deal with my own thoughts. So I can imagine how difficult it was for a lot of people.
So speaking of work and speaking of working on a book, talk to me a little bit about what you do. And I'm going to have you do it in this way. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders at a career day. And one of them is going to look up. One of them is going to look up at you and say, "What do you do for a living, and how are you qualified to do it?" What would your answer be?
I would say, and I've done, actually not third graders, I've done it for high schoolers. I have a career in a relationship management in both corporate America and really now in my side hustle, which is doing workshops and coaching and writing. I mean, it's really a communication career, and really building relationships with people to help them with their path. And in corporate America, it's helping them identify solutions for what they need in a business sense. But also I mentor people too, so that happens as well. But in the side hustle, in yoga and coaching and workshops, similar thing. I mean, kind of trying to understand what they need, and not necessarily what I say they need, it's what they say they need, and then really giving them some tools that they can take with them. I think a key thing in both of these instances is that we can't tell people what they should do or what they actually need. We need to respond and listen, and then give an array of things, and something might work and something may not work. But even there, deciding between those things that you offer is some sort of learning for them, and that's kind of what I do, I think, in pretty much all areas of my life.
Talk to me a little bit about growing up. How did you get the motivation to do what you do? What were some of the seeds that sprouted in you that made you want to be who you are now?
Yeah, I think I was a black sheep in a very conservative Christian household. My father was a minister, although I got along very well with him. I did not follow all the rules, and I had a very abusive mother. So I really had to learn at a very young age how to cope and how to get along with difficult personalities, which I use to this day. I think it's one of my superpowers, actually. So I had a really difficult childhood, with definitely glimmers. I mean, my father always thought I was talented, and he really thought very highly of me, but pretty much everybody else didn't. So that was hard, I think. But the good part of it, I think, again, is I had to evolve. I had to stand up for myself. I had the strength to break away from, my home, and that was important to me to do. And then I never really relied on anybody else. And that's very helpful in life, to not keep waiting for somebody to save you all the time.
Talk to me a little bit about kind of your mantra, so to speak, is navigating change with grace. Explain that. Explain what that means and how you arrived at this.
Yeah, I think so. There is plenty of evidence in my life where I did not master change with grace. And I think that, but I knew I wanted to do better. I knew that when I was faced with difficult times, all of the reptilian brain would come up, right? And you would, I would, do things that I didn't want to, that were outside of my normal character. And I wanted to fix that. I wanted to, with stimulus of difficulty, I wanted to not do things that I would regret. And that's really what I learned, but I had to learn it over, as I speak about in my book, I had to learn it over 3 years of compressed loss. And the first couple times you go through it, you can still kind of baby muscle through. You think you can get by. You get yourself over focused on work, or over focused on a relationship, or your kids, or drinking, or whatever, and you numb yourself out of it. But by the time I had the third one happen, I realized none of this was working. And I was already taking yoga therapy, a 3-year yoga therapy certification, and so I was able to apply those tools to those times, and they continue to work for me. The tools continue to work. Life doesn't stop giving you stuff to work through. COVID was certainly one, but I mean, I've had things with my kids and serious things, and I've used the tools, and they have helped me. So yeah, I think a lot of it's self-care. A lot of it's allowing things to happen and not wallowing in them. I mean, another thing I say a lot is, And I do believe that we've got to become more than what happens to us. I think that's incredibly important because the wallowing phase in a difficult period is one that feels good. It feels a little like self-care, but it's also like poor, pitiful me, and I don't have to do anything else. And that chip on your shoulder, if you live with it for too long, it can really slow you down and get you stuck. So, self-care, moving through, and focusing on your self-purpose. Like, what is your purpose for being here? When we get broken with these changes, it gives us, again, the chance to look at our lives and say, well, what do I really want to be known for? And what do I really want to leave behind? Especially with death, your mortality is right in front of you. So it's a great opportunity to look at what you want to do and what you want to be. And I think those things are what get you through those difficult times, is remembering who you want to be to the people around you. How do you want to love? How do you want to be remembered?
So who have been role models or heroes for you in your life?
It's funny you ask that. There's a lot of them are writers. So Mary Oliver is a poet. She's the one that, if you've ever seen the quote, what do you want to do with your one wild and precious life? She's a great role model for me. I think she was abused as a child. She had a very difficult childhood and sought nature and writing to work her way through it, and just did it beautifully, and wasn't resentful, really. I mean, she did write some things, that are certainly questioning her upbringing, but most of it just focused on life and being in the moment of life. I think Pema Chodron, again, a Buddhist monk, went through difficult times, found Buddhism, and writes about, all of her books are incredibly, difficult titles, like When Everything Falls Apart, things like that. Sharon Salzberg, again, another meditation teacher, teaches loving kindness meditation. Tara Brach, who's another meditation teacher. So I think those are a lot of my role models. All of them cop to difficult times. They do not say they have all the answers. They are human in every way. And I think, incredibly inspiring, because they do admit their foibles and that they also, suffer and fight through things. So I really appreciate that.
My poetry class in college, that was the poet that my professor introduced us to, was Mary Oliver. So I remember her very well, for sure. So if you could meet anybody on the planet right now that's alive and talk to them for a little bit, who would you love to meet?
I'm trying to think of who I follow, that I really follow. I think I would like to meet, I think I'd really like to meet Tara Brach. I think that would be one of the people that I'd want to meet. I think she's quite eloquent. When she does, if you've ever listened to her podcast, she does a Wednesday night podcast. She always weaves in philosophy. She was a psychologist, weaves in mental health, and then weaves in poetry. Almost every hour that she does. So I think I'd like to meet her. I think Pema Chodron. She's brilliant, and I'd love to meet her. So that's probably the two that I would pay to see right now.
Right on. Excellent.
Yeah.
So every day we wake up, we have things we look forward to and that we want to do. What is it for you that drives you through your day? What do you look forward to the most?
I think I look for those connections that I have with people, the moment where there's a turning point in the conversation or the problem or the project that we're working on, and where I can say something. I can, I usually pick my moment that can resonate. I think one of the benefits of the work that I've done, we really didn't talk anything about energy work, but I've done a lot of work about understanding people's energy and their thoughts and understanding what's being said in the room, and in the Zoom too. And I think being able to find that moment where you can connect people's communication and find the thing that will help move, the project or the endeavor or the whatever conversation along. I think that's what really drives me in a lot of ways. It probably, again, I think it's built from being abused as a kid, being always having to find that spot for survival. And it's, like that outliers thing that Malcolm Gladwell talks about. I had so much practice at it that it's something that now is something I enjoy doing because I can, and there's no negative usually associated with it. So I think that's what keeps me going, and I think everything that I'm doing that has that little spark in it of connection is really enjoyable for me, and that's writing and podcast interviews and just kind of all the things that bring me joy. Teaching yoga. So,
Yeah. Well, you talked about, energy work and giving and all of that. I'm curious, how do you balance all of that in your life? I mean, you have to give, but you also have to take care of yourself. How does that dance work for you?
I think it's a really good question, and I've been doing a lot of work on boundaries in terms of writing. I mean, it's a big subject. I think it's a workshop I want to do. I think one of the turns that I've gotten to around boundaries is that we have to be careful of doing too much for people because we don't allow them to grow and we don't give them confidence to do it on their own. And I think that has been an important turn for me in my whole journey around, helping people. I try not to say I help people anymore. I try to say that I give them tools and then they help themselves. And I don't want to take that away from them in any way, including my kids or family or loved ones. There's always a line. And I always try to think of it as, is this something that will further them? Or am I just putting a Band-Aid on something that they actually have to solve themselves? And I think that's important to let people solve their own problems. And yeah, I think that's where I'm working on the boundary. I'm not saying I'm always good at it, but I'm definitely working on the boundary there.
So if you look back on your life and think about all of the things, the wisdom that you've gained, and I'm going to put you in a scenario where you have a dream tonight, you run into your 20-year-old version, and you can give that version of yourself a piece of advice based on the wisdom that you've gained throughout all these years. What would you tell your young version?
It's okay to love yourself. It's okay to put yourself first. Stop drinking. These are things. I think everything that I did in the last however many decades since then, I wish I had taken care of myself more so that I could have been better to those around me. I think that, because we can't love other people more than we love ourselves, and I wish I had taken better care of myself all the way around. And that may sound incredibly selfish, but it's really a gift to everybody else. If you take care of your own business, you're less likely to marry the wrong people or say the wrong thing or act in the wrong way because you have your center and you're taking good care of yourself so that you can give to others without any ultimatums or requirements. So I think that's what I wish I would have done. I would have said, you can take care of yourself. You don't have to work so hard to be liked. You don't have to work so hard to have a group that they love you. You can, you're going to be okay.
So what's been one of the best client fan responses you've ever gotten from your work that you remember?
I know I am so glad you said what you said, and I think also there's through my book there's a lot of people I had no idea I needed this. I think that I had no idea that I needed this, and that's how my journey's been too. So I think that's an incredibly incredible gift, and I'm sure you understand this too. Like when somebody comes back to you with a line in your book or in your work that resonated with them, it's a huge gift. And it just makes it feel worth it because there's so much that we do as artists that we just don't You're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Why do I keep doing this? I can't really stop it. But, when somebody comes back and throws back at you a line that you worked hard on and you were truly vulnerable in and weren't sure you should share it, and they throw it back at you. I think the one that got me recently was somebody who came back with the line where you asked me if I believe in love, and wherever religion coincides with love, I believe in it. And that came back to me in a thank you card, and that was really cool because it's not a line that I talk a lot about, but it was an important one. I was very vulnerable about it because I was trying to stay away from religion in my book, and I'm glad that she came back with it.
So everyone out there has a perception or an idea of who they think you are, your family, your friends, your clients. But ultimately, you live your life. You've always had a perception of you. Who do you think you are?
That's a great question. I hope that I am kind. I think that's the thing I would like to be. That would be the thing that I would like to be. I think everything else will come from that. But I think if I could remember to be kind, I hope that people think of me that way now. I don't think I was always thought that way. And I think the other one is I'm really tenacious. I don't say I don't give up. I give up briefly, and then I kind of, get grit going, and I'm tenacious. And I got that from my mother, which is an interesting statement since she abused me. But it is the thing that drove her. She got through a lot of difficult times, and I think it's one thing that I think people would always say of me is that I don't stop trying.
So, Donna, if anybody wants to learn more about you, your services, anything that you do, where's the best place for them to go?
It would be probably my website, which is minichangeyoga.com. So it's MINI changeyoga.com. If you also Google Donna Ferris, like the Ferris wheel, and yoga, so Donna Ferris Yoga, you'll find me. That's probably the best way to do it because my site's got, all those press event things I'm doing and stuff about the book and latest podcast. So that's probably the best way. Thank you.
Wonderful. Donna, thank you for opening up. I really appreciate it. Have a great holiday.
Thank you. Wonderful talking with you. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, and music from around the globe. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.